What is up, everybody? Welcome back into Hoops 360. On today's show, an update on the WNBA CBA. What even is a moratorium anyway? Plus, WNBA and Unrivaled guard Erica Wheeler joins us. What is it that she loves about now being unrivaled? Plus, we dive into Texas head coaches Vic Schaefer's comments after their first loss of the season to LSU. And also, Cass and I will both spotlight some college players of the week. Do you disagree with any of our takes? Do you have a thought? Do you have a comment? Do you have a question? Comment down below if you're watching us here on YouTube. We'll make sure to get to a mailbag and all of the points that you have to make coming up on a recent episode. She is Cassandra Negley. I am Caroline Fenton. Cass, it is obligatory. We have to do it every single week because that is just the season that we are living in the WNBA. No deal in the CBA. And what's different this time around is that there is no extension. We have now reached a moratorium agreement between the WNBPA and the league. What is that?
Well, let's backtrack a little bit. Because there is no deal and because there is no deal on an extension, the league enters a status quo period. So negotiations continue in good faith. The league continues operating under the previous CBA. So if the league continues operating under the previous CBA, what happens is beginning on Sunday, teams were allowed to send out qualifying offers to their free agents. They were allowed to designate their core players, et cetera, to begin the free agency process. Obviously, that's kind of a little bit useless if there's going to be a new CBA with higher salaries and et cetera. Players are going to decline all of those things. It's kind of just useless paperwork. Doesn't make a lot of sense. So enter a moratorium, a deal that says free agency will be put on pause. They will not send out those qualifying offers for players to respond to. That part of league operations just kind of does not happen at the moment. Everything else, though, continues. So players can still contact teams and coaches. They can have that open line of communication. They can work out in team facilities. Everything operates as normal while they try and figure out a new CBA. This actually just recently happened in minor league hockey. Their CBA expired in June with the AHL and the ECHL. They actually continued to play games up until December under that previous CBA while they continued negotiations. A little bit different. There are players who play under a contract that allows them to make back pay for the difference in pay. The AHL did have a strike. They had a short work stoppage. That is all cleared up. But continuing negotiations in a status quo period is not abnormal per se.
And we've been talking about potentially stepping into a status quo period for at least a month, if not even more. That we didn't think that it was necessarily inevitable, but we all knew that this was a potential outcome, or this was at least in the cards, that we would enter this period of status quo. Two things, though, that concern me. One, it's what you just mentioned, and that's free agency. That's the whole point of moratorium. It puts a hold on free agency. And look, this could change tomorrow. That's kind of the unpredictability of all of these negotiations. We are not sitting in these boardrooms. We're not having these conversations. So we don't know exactly what these conversations hold and you know what is being discussed. But I did read an article that said it could potentially push free agency back to March. And you might say, well, that still leaves plenty of time for training camp. That still leaves plenty of time to build your team before the beginning of the season. But what I think about is a little something else that we have in the world of basketball that happens in the month of March. And that is the NCAA tournament. That is the Final Four. That when you have these teams, these coaches, these general managers that are planning their teams for the future, a really big part of that is scouting in the NCAA tournament. Is so many of these players that boost their draft stock when they play to a certain level in the biggest games of the year. Now, I'm not saying it's inevitable that free agency is going to be pushed back to March. I'm just saying that is in the cards. And whenever you have a college season that backs up right into the beginning of the WNBA season, you already have a really, really tight schedule, pushing free agency back even further with the sheer volume of players that are free agents this offseason. I can see potential issues propping up there for scouting departments and for general managers as so many of these teams start to build for the future.
Yeah, when you're talking about scouting, you're talking about players for the draft in April now and for years to come. If
Yeah.
we're looking at kind of a timeline, like let's say tomorrow, for whatever reason, suddenly there's a deal. Well, that's just that the terms of the deal have been agreed upon. It still needs to be approved by the Board of Governors. It is put into action. Like these things can take time. Brianna Stewart has kind of talked about the end of January as not a deadline, but maybe a target date that they want to see a CBA done by. But if we are looking at free agency in March, I think the other thing, and we've talked about this a lot in terms of where the WNBA is in terms of media coverage and interest and fan interest and whatnot, you're now going to have most of your league as free agents who could jump teams, make splashy moves. Like free agency has been a big deal lately, and it is completely going to intersect with the biggest women's college basketball moment of the year in March Madness. Could that maybe impact each side a little bit and what is covered, what is talked about, what is the headline? Maybe. I think like I heard someone else say this as well, and a few of us have talked about it. Like you start putting all of these things on top of each other and it's just exhausting to think about. But the important part is like for the league specifically, irregardless of March Madness, like it is now in crunch time in terms of all the things they have to do. We've talked about the expansion draft. It's not just holding an expansion draft. It is telling teams what the exact rules are that are collectively bargained. It is allowing teams to figure out who they want to protect or not protect. It is then having the draft. It is then setting up free agency. Like we're getting close to the pins and the dominoes that need to fall. And this continuing to go on in this way is going to really crunch things.
You brought up an interesting point that I didn't really think of until now. And look, this isn't detrimental. This isn't the end of the world. But you think about where women's basketball is right now, the W in the sport as a whole. So much of that is because of the attention that's being paid to this sport and the way that the sport is covered. If we're talking about CBA negotiations or free agency in the month of March, well, the NCAA tournament is such a wonderful, open door for so many people to flood into this sport. It's such a wonderful opportunity for so many of these athletes' stories to be told. You think about so many games that happen in the NCAA tournament, that might be the only exposure that certain sports fans have to women's basketball throughout the entirety of the season. I'm thinking back to that Iowa-UConn game in the Final Four a couple of years ago, South Carolina and Iowa in the national championship game, Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark in the national championship game. That was the number one story, not in this sport, but in sports for like weeks. Like these are moments where women's college basketball gets to take center stage, and we just get to talk about basketball and players and coaches and what these teams and athletes and coaches have accomplished. It's just it's just a pure love of basketball for like 1 month. We get that to just enjoy what we see on the court. Coverage is such a massive part of this game. Whenever we're talking about the legalese of free agency and a CBA and upcoming contracts, that kind of pulls the sanctity is probably a very dramatic word. I'll use it anyway. The sanctity of what we get from the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, I think the thing is, it's women's basketball has always been a flow. This and then this and then this and then this. The tournament and then the WNBA draft and then training camp and then the WNBA season, etc. That'll just be jumbled. I think, also like men's basketball does this, right? Like NBA is fighting for playoff positioning during the tournament. Does that hurt the men's tournament? I don't know. Like maybe this is just a litmus test for where women's basketball is. But I think the bigger thing for the WNBA and its league office and its teams and its players are games are not, like the season is not at stake yet, but certainly like there's not a lot of time left in the capsule.
Right. And things are coming to fruition now with moratorium and with a a point of status quo that we kind of feared several months ago, but hoped wouldn't happen. Now here we are. And I do want to just put out there, and from my understanding of all of this, from my feelings, I don't feel better today about the CBA negotiations coming to an agreement than I did last week. I feel significantly worse, actually, because if the WNBPA and the league felt like they were so close, felt like, okay, we're agreeing on things, we are ticking boxes, we're being productive, we're getting stuff done here, there would have been a deadline. Or at least an extension, I believe, that, hey, we just give us 2 more weeks. Give us 2 more weeks to finish these final few things, to tie up a few loose ends. We only need a couple more weeks, and then we'll be okay. We'll be in a good spot. That's not what happened here. It's different, and it's a new verbiage and a new period of time in negotiations than we've had, but it's not a good thing. I feel like now anything is on the table at this point.
Yes, I think that's fair to look at it that way, especially when you're hearing from players specifically who say, we believe a deal will get done. Like, we intend to do a deal. I know that on the WNBA side, they have been saying this for a while. There's a few people I've asked, well, what exactly happens if a striker, if a lockout, whatever? And they were like, we'll give you these answers, but we do not believe that that is going to be the case. It does feel like we're kind of just in a floating area here. I do think a deal will get done, but there are imaginary deadlines that need to happen. And so I think if you're hoping for, a good, healthy offseason into a season, we kind of don't have that anymore. And these expansion teams that are coming in, the 2 that are coming in this year, are really at a detriment in terms of that, because things are just going to be so quick once they happen.
What'd you think about the rat?
It was there in a photo.
So if anybody didn't see this, there was a giant inflatable rat outside of the league offices. The WNBPA put out a statement that said today's display of an inflatable rat, what I did not expect to be talking about today for $500. And a giant inflatable rat, a universal symbol for labor protest outside of the NBA store, not league offices, NBA store, calls attention to how the league and its teams have handled these negotiations. There you go. WNBPA also said, quote, despite demonstrating our willingness to compromise in order to get a deal done, the WNBA and its teams have failed to meet us at the table with the same spirit and seriousness. What do you take away from that statement there from the Players Association?
This is the line that the Players Association has been taking for a while now. This kind of hitting at the league, like they're doing all they can. They're working in the best fashion. The union is on the up and up and doing everything correctly, and the league is the problem. The thing about the league is that they have not for the past, say, 5 years, and do not intend to hit back at the players. They're not going to say anything bad about their players. However, in the past few months, they have certainly made some rare, pointed comments in these statements about how, in my words, it is ridiculous that the union is saying that they're running out the clock or not doing certain things. As you said earlier, we do not know what's going on at the table, and I do not pretend to, because unless you are in that room, you do not know for certain. But it does just continuously feel like these really stern statements when maybe that's not necessarily what's going on behind the scenes. I think, as we've said here many times before, my stance is this is a negotiation and both sides are going to win some things and both sides are going to lose some things. Said it before and I'll say it again. Subert has been very clear about this idea that you're going to sign the document and walk away, kind of upset or angry or not completely happy. And that's the state of negotiations. You can't go in expecting to get, this is what I want. I'm going to get it. It's like buying a house realistically. You can have a list of things you want, but you need to give on some things because you're not made of millions of dollars to buy the exact house you want.
Welcome to the world of negotiations.
Yeah.
Welcome to the world of compromise. An important thing to point out, too, is both of these sides have lawyers, both of these sides have publicists. These are all statements that are constructed and well thought out and put out by people who I would probably guess make a pretty penny putting out statements like this, doing this for a living. So always keep in mind, what message is trying to be pushed from either side. It's never always going to be the clearest, most accurate peek behind the curtain of what's happening between both sides. Just think about the end goal from either side. Again, that's nothing that's new or individualistic to these negotiations or anything that is specific to these negotiations. This is just the world of negotiations. The court of public opinion can be a powerful tool that's on your side when we're talking about the world of negotiations.
I love
All
that
right,
point. Great point.
Yeah, thank you. Hey,
it's a good call
PR
out.
is a thing.
Yeah.
PR is a thing. I think it's fair to say that. All right. I'm sure that CBA talk is not going anywhere. So we'll see you next week with whatever updates we may have. But coming up next, we are so excited to bring in WNBA and Unrivaled guard Erica Wheeler into the show. Joining Hoops 360 now is Erica Wheeler. Erica, appreciate you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. So happy to have you. And you are now officially Unrivaled. You're from Miami. You're kind of going back home, so to speak. Why did you choose to join Unrivaled?
Why did I choose? Well, first, thank you for having me. Super excited to talk about whole logic and just being able to empower women to, get their HPV and PAP tests. So, but speaking about Unrivaled, super happy to be here. I'm in Miami. I'm home, so it feel like my homecoming. So, I'm super honored. I haven't been back home playing since 2009. So, super excited to be back home.
What is it about Unrivaled now that you've played a few games, been in training camp, all of that, that
Mhm.
has really made you excited in the WNBA offseason, or maybe a unique story that you've already experienced with so many high caliber players in one spot like this?
I think it's the unique part is just that being able to have all the competition all in one place. I think the biggest thing for me is being able to play a team and you have to walk past them at halftime or after the game. We're all in the same training room. I think that's the unique part about it. Um, 'Cause that's tough. When you lose a game, you don't wanna see the opponent after the game, so I think that's been the biggest takeaway for me, but, Unrivaled do a great job of just being able to put, their players first. It's definitely a players first lead. They take care of us, and like I said, I'm home. I'm pretty much spoiled. I probably got between 20 to 30 tickets every night, every time we play, so it's been super special.
And you're coached in Unrivaled by Teresa Weatherspoon. What is
Yes.
she like as a head coach?
Um As you know, ball of energy, that's who I am as well. Um, Super motivator. She can probably get you to run through a wall. So it's been great to be able to have her. Just being able to bounce, point guard to point guard, just being able to learn little tips from her. But I think more importantly, her energy and how she believes in her players is the biggest thing that I'm taking away.
What is it like having a former player as your coach? I'm sure she brings a different perspective, maybe, as
hmm
some coaches who didn't play in the W.
Um, she knows the game, and she knows that sometimes that things happen, and it's not all about X's and O's. She understands that we're human too as well, and I think that's the biggest thing when you haven't been in the locker room, you haven't been with a team, you don't understand those things. Like things happen, and we are women, 6 women, all attitudes is not gonna be on the same page every day. So just being able to have that woman figure one and then for someone to been in the locker room with other teammates, she understands that not every day is gonna be great. So I think she also give us that room to, be ourselves. And if we're not having a good day, also acknowledge that too as well.
We want to ask you about the WNBA CBA negotiations are now ongoing, entering that status quo area. Just your initial thoughts on how these negotiations have gone, where you're at right now with the union, especially with your just experience as a veteran player in this league, having gone through this.
We don't have much of an update. Um, but I'm just focused on her logic in this campaign and just being able to empower women to go get that PAP and HB test. So that's what I've been focusing on. I don't have much information. What you see out there is what I know. So I've just been really locked in on this campaign and just being able to, be a voice for this campaign that I'm super honored to be a part of because it also allows me to highlight my mom and being able to get your screening is super important.
You're joining us for such an important cause, and I do want to get
Mhm.
into more of that. But Cass brings up the WNBA CBA, and we're at this point because the league has experienced such unprecedented amounts of growth. You have been in the league now for over a decade. What has been the biggest change that you have noticed from 2015 when you were first drafted or when you first entered the league until now?
Mhm. I think people are aware now. I think the world is super aware of the lead. I think we get more way more visibility than we have in a very long time. And then our voice is standing out, and we're standing firm on certain things. But like I said, I'm locked in on this campaign. I'm one step at a time type of girl. So whatever happens with the CBA happens. Like I told you, the only update I have is what you see out there, and I've just been where my feet are. I'm happy to be home playing on Rival, but also being able to be a part of this campaign has been uh, a great focus shift, I will say, because it's allowing me to do something super positive. Um, Whole Logic is super dear to me that I'm able to be a part of this campaign to just be that voice. I'm using my voice in a great way, an impactful way. So I'm just happy to be able to do that. So whatever the CBA lands or whatever, however it goes, it goes. But right now, where my feet are, and us just being able to encourage women to, get their screenings.
Yeah, January is Cervical Health Awareness Month. Why is that so important to you to be a proponent of?
It's super important to me because if you guys don't know, my mom passed away from cervical cancer in 2012, and I just told the last report if Whole Logic, if I knew about Whole Logic at that young age, I definitely would have had me and my family going to get our testing and getting screened. So for me, it's super dear. It's two tests. 2 tests. Like, just take the test to be able to, prevent, almost causing your life, and if I knew what I knew now, to being able to work with this campaign and have the knowledge that I have now, things would be a lot different, so that's why it's super dear to me. I wish my mom did know about Whole Logic and have being able to have the resource to go to the ultimatedefense.com to, how can I say, get the knowledge to learn about the PEP and HPV test.
Tell us about your mom. What are your favorite memories of her? What was she
Oh,
like? What do you
man.
miss about her most?
Yeah, my mom is the ball energy, like me. I won't get emotional. I got emotional early. I think I got it all out. My mom is a ball of energy, super genuine. Will literally give anybody the shirt off her back. And that's how I am. That's the thing she instilled in me. But more importantly, like, my mom was one of those moms that wasn't like, let me discipline you every step of the way. She was one of those parents that, like, if you touch the hot stove, it's gonna burn you. So go touch it. Like, learn your lesson in that way. She never ever got in the way of allowing me to grow in a sense. And that's why I think that every year I add something to my life or something to who I am and my character because I'm constantly growing, I'm constantly learning, and I learned that from my mom, single parent, raising 3 girls, and man, and she done a wonderful job. Look how I turned out, So just being able to how can I say, gloat about that it means the world to me to be able to, shout my mom out and give her the glory of all the things that I am, you know what I mean? So that's the one thing, a couple of things that I love about my mom and that I always tell the world that probably the best mom in the world.
How has that applied to your basketball career? Especially in the years since she's been gone. I imagine you look up into the crowd and maybe see where she used to be.
I think the biggest thing for me is when I have my low moments, um, just always thinking about my mom kind of center me and make me understand and help me refocus to get back why I'm doing what I'm doing. Cause sometimes basketball's up and down. Sometimes you're playing good, sometimes you're not. Sometimes you're on a really big high where everything is going well. And when things are not going well, I just kind of center myself and just say, you know what? My mom is the reason I'm doing this. She's watching me more than ever. So whatever I'm doing, as long as I'm doing it, in a way that honor her and to make her proud, and then also just to be able to inspire the youth. My story is very unique, and I think that I can advocate for a lot of kids that are coming up that's probably was in the same situation that I was in growing up. So I kind of always kind of center myself, and my mom and dad.
You have overcome so much to be where
Hmm.
you are right now.
Yeah.
What's one message that you would tell young hoopers and young athletes that might also be experiencing a similar adversity that you overcame?
What advice I'll get young hoopers? Because this generation is a little different. They have internet, they get NIL. It's like this generation is a little different. I didn't have that, so I have to say, mm, I gotta shift the advice I've got to give these kids because it's super different. I have to tell them like whatever you're doing, whether it's basketball, whether it's your artist, whether you're ballet, pianist, like make sure you're having fun. Because I think oftentimes we we love something so much that we can forget to have fun. And I think that's why I enjoy what I do. Whether I get paid or don't get paid, or whether I play a minute or don't play a minute, I love what I do. And I actually genuinely have fun doing it and being able to be like you meet different people. So I think that's the biggest thing for me. Just have fun with it. Because once you start having fun with it, it becomes a job. And you don't want what you love doing to feel like a job. Because then you won't give your best. When you love something, you always give your best.
What's next for you? I know that you are so passionate for so many great reasons with
Mhm,
Hologic and you're being where your feet are, and I totally
mhm.
understand and respect that. But what's next for Erica on the hardwood?
Well, I'm a person that's where my feet are, and right now, I'm with Hologic doing this campaign. So the next thing for me is to be able to empower women to go get their testing. Just go, please go get it. Like, it's super dear to me. It's super important. Um, like, talk to your doctors, get the screening. Like, we have all the resources in the world, and yourultimatedefense.com, it has and it's simplified. It's not all over the place. You know how you can go and look at information that's all over the place. It's simplified. Just get the knowledge and just be able to protect yourself to prevent anything. Because like I said, if I knew what I knew now with Hologic and this whole campaign, I things would be different. I will be more informed. I would probably tell my mom, "Come on, let's go. I'll go with you. Let's go do it together." So I just that I'm where my feet are with this campaign. I can't think about the WNBA or the CBA. Right now I'm in Arrival and I'm working on this campaign with Hologic. So that's where I'm at. I'm not the one that look too far ahead because as you know, as my journey, like it's not that. I'm where my feet are.
Erica, if I may, to maybe help push your point of the campaign,
So, no,
what was the story with your mom and how she found out she had cancer? Was she not taking these kind of regular tests? Like we all get busy
mm,
and it falls off our radar.
see the thing is, one, I don't want to disclose that because I think that's
That's
something
fine.
super sacred to my family. But I just think just being a woman of color, we just don't have the information. And then I think sometimes more than not, we're not thinking about it. We just going through life, just trying to make ends meet. And that was my mom raising three girls, single parent, just trying to make ends meet. It's just not a priority. And I just think that me having my voice, being able to do this campaign with Logic, I want to put it on women's radar. And even if your son, fathers, like make your daughter, your mom, your whoever, go get this testing. So I just want to be that voice. Like I said, I just think when life get too busy, you just don't think about it. You do the things that's a priority in that moment. So I'm encouraging everybody, women, men, please just go get the testing because it's something so super simple that you can miss that can cause you everything.
It's such a wonderful reminder that in
Yeah.
life, when we get so busy and we think about what's next, we think about money, we think about so many other
Mhm.
things. It's a nice reminder to remember that our Our health and our loved ones are the absolute most important things in our life. That's exactly why Erica is joining us on behalf of Hologic to launch the Ultimate Defense, a campaign encouraging women on how they can have the power to prevent this devastating disease with regular PAP and HPV screening. Erica, thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you for joining us. We'll be cheering you on every step of the way.
Thank you guys. Thank you guys for pushing this message because it's super deep to me. It's super important for us as women to be able to advocate for each other. So I thank you ladies for having me on. And go get that screening. Please do. Go get it.
Absolutely. Thanks so much, Erica.
Thank you.
I'd appreciate Erica Wheeler for stopping by the show and for, bringing to light what is such an important cause and such an important message for all of us. Do you want to transition our attention to the world of college hoops, though? Our biggest game of the week last week came at the hands of LSU taking down Texas, handing the Longhorns their first loss of the season, and something that Kim Mulkey and company needed badly after dropping to 0-2 in SEC play, losing to Kentucky and Vanderbilt in the first two games of conference play. Cass, it was a defensive slugfest. Texas had LSU right where they wanted them. Texas wants to play those very low-scoring, grinded-out kind of games, but LSU wins this one 70-65 in Baton Rouge. What are some of your takeaways from this game?
The biggest takeaway was exactly what you talked about, defense. I think it was Michaela Williams after the game and the post-game said that Kim Mulkey is always telling them to pressure teams the way that they pressure us. And I feel like that's exactly what happened. Like LSU's defense was in every passing lane. They made everything difficult. They sped Texas up. Texas had to make quick decisions, and I don't think they were ready for it. Rory Harmon didn't have a great game. They didn't feed Madison Booker in those second and third quarters as well as I think they should have. And when you saw them start to do that in the fourth is when they really made it a game. I think this is just a blip for Texas. Like they'll figure it out. I think losses are good, and this is a loss you can learn from. But certainly LSU's defense to get back in the SEC race was incredible.
Yeah, I mean, LSU did not shoot particularly well. If I just look at a box score and say, LSU shot 39% from the field against the number 2 team in the country, I would think that LSU got absolutely positively clobbered. But they took that me-bounding T-shirt that some of the coaching staff was wearing pregame. They took that seriously. LSU had a great day rebounding, out-rebounded Texas 44-35 on that one. And to your point about Texas, look, you can't expect to go through the grind that was Texas's a non-conference schedule and then now go through SEC play and expect to come through flawlessly and without a single, loss on your schedule. These kinds of games are going to happen, especially when you're on the road, especially when you're taking on a top 10 team in the country. These things happen. They're learning experiences. So one of my other big takeaways, if we want to transition off the court, was something that we heard after the game. Vic Schaefer spoke with the media, and he had some pointed comments, kind of calling out the SEC and SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey. This is what Vic Schaefer had to say postgame.
They obviously have a vendetta against Texas because there's 16 games this year. And I have to play South Carolina on the road this year as well as LSU. I get them back-to-back in the same week. I'm really disappointed in the league for putting our kids in that position, but we play whoever's in front of us. And so it's hard, but that's what we all sign up for. Unless somebody from my university stands up and says, hey, what in the hell's going on here? Nobody does anything. And that's my frustration is that I waited. I've seen it. It's been on my radar since spring meetings. When the schedule came out, I saw it. And I waited for people that I thought should have stood up and said something. Nothing was said. It's us against the world a lot of times, and we have to embrace that.
So Vic didn't really mince any words there. Quote, I'm really disappointed in the league for putting our kids in that position. Vic Schaefer even went as far as to say the SEC has a vendetta against Texas for their scheduling. Texas had back-to-back games at LSU and then at South Carolina. Look, Vic, no one is saying that going to Columbia and to Baton Rouge is a cakewalk. No one is saying that that's easy. No one is saying that that should be something that you look at and get super duper excited for because it's just going to be the easiest thing in the world. But that is absolutely, utterly ridiculous to even say something like that. It is so whiny. It is so crybaby. I think it sends just a terrible message to your locker room and to your fan base that losing isn't our fault. Losing is their fault. We lost this game not because we didn't give it our best effort, or not because our star players weren't playing to their top of their abilities, not because we didn't rebound well enough, not because we didn't shoot well enough, not because we just weren't on our A game tonight. No, none of those things. It's not our fault. It's the league's fault because the SEC hates us. I always go back to just the utter lunacy. I can't even speak. I'm so frustrated. The lunacy of Vic Schaefer calling out the SEC women's basketball tournament being in Greenville, South Carolina. Obviously just a hop and a skip from Columbia, South Carolina. He said that's just a total advantage to South Carolina. The game's been in Greenville even before South Carolina was a total women's basketball dynasty. Nobody has an issue with the men's tournament being in Nashville, literally a 5-minute walk away from Vanderbilt, because Vanderbilt is not the same kind of dynasty on the men's side that South Carolina is on the women's side. So I just think it's ridiculous. I think it's weak. I think that Vic Schaefer is better than that. I think that Texas is better than that. And welcome to the SEC, Cass, because it's going to be hard. When you have 5 teams in the top 10, 9 teams in the top 25, and oh yeah, another one receiving votes in the AP poll in Georgia, you're going to have some difficult back-to-backs. You're going to have some stretches and some periods where you're playing the best teams in the country, coached by the best coaches in the country, and some of the most difficult places to play. Welcome to this league. It's the most competitive league in women's college basketball for a reason. Sorry.
Did you want to give us your comparison, your MTV era comparison?
Yo, thank you.
You're welcome.
Vic Schaefer, to me, when I heard that, if you watched the show My Super Sweet 16, one of my favorites from MTV back in the day, bring her back. It made me think of those rich, spoiled 16-year-olds whose parents just threw the most immaculate, extravagant party with ice sculptures, and 50 Cent came out, and they had chocolate fondue fountains, and there were like 300 people invited, and then everyone walks outside, and there is just this like state-of-the-art brand new Range Rover that has diamond-encrusted tires and wheels, and then she says, I wanted the pink Range Rover, not the purple one. And it's like, after all of this stuff that you got, that's what you're crying about? It's because the interior was crocodile and not python? Like, that's the kind of boo-hoo, whiny, I'm playing the world's tiniest violin for you kind of complaining I hear from Vic Schaefer.
All right, so I'll take a little water and throw it on the fire here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I love Vic Schaefer, by the way. I love him. I love him as a coach. I love what he does for this league. I have nothing against Vic Schaefer in Texas basketball. I just think it's ridiculous to say those things.
Well, I have a counter argument for your argument. But first I will say,
okay.
I think 2 things can always be true. The conference does not necessarily have a vendetta against Texas. Do they? Maybe. I don't know. I have no clue. But they don't necessarily have a vendetta against Texas. It can also be true, though, that Texas kind of got screwed with their first 2 SEC schedules. What I will tell you about that, though, is I am sure in the SEC office, they're looking at Texas coming into their conference, which is for football reasons. Let's be very clear. It is not about basketball, but Texas is coming over. Oklahoma is coming over. You look at the team that Texas has, South Carolina is a juggernaut. LSU is a juggernaut. What is going to bring us ratings? What is going to bring us interest? What is going to put the SEC in the best spotlight? Texas is going to play South Carolina twice under this new scheduling format. Then the next year, they will play LSU twice under this new scheduling format. And it'll be amazing. And we'll get it on the big ESPN. And all is well in terms of the SEC office. Like, that is probably what happened here. Obviously, he also brought up that his bigger issue was that he also had to play South Carolina on the road this year in back-to-back, whatever. Scheduling is not easy. It's tricky. What I will say as a counter-argument, though, I think he said it for a few reasons. The first, in terms of the locker room, like he had said pretty early in this post-game press conference that he felt like for the first time, his team was selfish in that game. They did not play as a collective, and you could kind of see that, right? So maybe there's a message here because he does say in all of this, like I tell my kids all the time, sometimes it's us against the world. If it's us against the world, like you are channeling that team mentality. It is not, not calling out Rory Harmon here. It is not Rory Harmon against the world. It's not Madison Booker against the world. It's Texas against the world. So come together. The other counter argument that I thought was most interesting from everything he said was that he wished someone else had brought it up. Let me go back to his quote. I have like 5 tabs open.
5? That's light work.
That's the other screen has a lot more. So he gave like a 3-minute answer when he was talking about this, right? And he said that, the schedule bothers him, but they don't call him and ask about it. He understands, he gets it. Unless somebody from my university, he said, stands up and says, hey, what the hell is going on here? Nobody does anything. And that's my frustration, is that I've waited, I've seen it, it's been on my radar since spring meetings when the schedule came out. I waited for people that I thought should have stood up and said something. Nothing was said. I mean, we've got people in the conference office that are just in charge of women's basketball. He was later asked, someone in the room, kudos to them, asked for kind of a point of clarification. Was he upset at someone at Texas didn't say something or someone else? And he said, I'm upset that no one said anything, and that's what bothers him. He wants somebody to stand up for his team and his program. This is really reading into it, but we all know that women's basketball and women's sports are often overlooked. They're down the totem pole, et cetera, and onward. 2021 was not that long ago, and everything that happened with the tournament and equality and that, paper that came out of it.
Yeah.
In talking to coaches sometimes, just chit-chatting, you will hear that they also don't feel well represented in their athletic department, no matter how good or how bad they are, no matter if they're a Power 4 or they're a mid-major. There are some times where they are overlooked. And I viewed this as something that, like, if it happened in football or an equivalent in men's basketball, maybe someone says something. And maybe it's, like, completely behind the scenes, but it's like, hey, like, this is ridiculous, right? Like, are we going to do something about this in the future? That's what I felt like Vic was doing, was like, no one stood up for me behind the scenes, so I'm going to make this a big deal in front of the scenes.
And I do appreciate Vic for being such a great advocate for women's basketball in the game and for his team. I would say the exact same sentiment if a football coach said what Vic Schaefer said. I would feel the exact same way if a men's basketball coach said what Vic Schaefer said. Because even though you might feel like you got totally jobbed, even though you might feel like you got the shortest end of the stick, I don't think that you can publicly say, well, we feel like the league hates us. Because I don't feel like that. I don't feel like that goes along with his us against the world mentality. Because to me, it sounds like complaining. And the reason why Texas is on the road at both South Carolina and LSU is because they got those 2 teams at home last year. So that's kind of just the luck with scheduling. Sometimes, some years, you get the luck of the draw and you get your toughest games at home. And then you're able to capitalize on getting those toughest games at home. Then the next year, you have to turn around and go on the road. And that's the other side of that. And that happens in men's basketball, that happens in baseball, that happens in softball, that happens in football. That's just the reality of scheduling. And I'm looking back at Texas's schedule last year. Sandwiched in between those South Carolina and LSU games was a trip on the road at number 8 Kentucky at the time. So I would say that's even tougher than what Vic Schaefer and Texas had this year. So I totally hear you, and I hear Vic Schaefer's sentiment. I don't disagree with the fact that that's ridiculous. That is so incredibly difficult taking on 2 of the best teams in the country on the road. And those are long road trips too. Columbia, South Carolina and Baton Rouge, Louisiana are not close to one another. So I hear him in saying that. I just think there's a better way to go about it to push your point without sounding like you're complaining. And I did just before I went on my diatribe and I got up on my soapbox to talk about this. I wanted to make sure that Texas's schedule was not significantly more difficult than anyone else's. So I just picked a random team that first came to my head. I thought, okay, Tennessee. Let's look at Tennessee's schedule. Let's see if they have anything that's comparable to, what Vic Schaefer is talking about in two really difficult back-to-back on-the-road games. I look at Tennessee's schedule, and they finish out the year on the road at Oklahoma, and then on the road at LSU, and then they finish out the season at home against Vanderbilt. Those are two top 15 teams, at least right now. That's number 6 LSU right now, and then number 5 Vanderbilt right now. Those are 3 of the top teams in the country. Those are 3 teams that I think could get to the SEC championship game. Those are 3 teams that I think absolutely will be well represented in March. And I thought, okay, that's just one sample size of Tennessee. Tennessee has a really tough draw because Tennessee is also a national powerhouse. They carry a big brand. So maybe what's another team that doesn't carry as big of a brand in women's basketball? Okay, Georgia. Let's look at Georgia. Georgia played LSU at home, and then they went on the road at South Carolina, and then now they get Ole Miss. That's 3 consecutive top 20 teams that they get. Now, granted, they're not going on the road as much as Texas was, but still, I'm looking around at the rest of the league, and I'm seeing ranked matchup against ranked matchup on the road against a top 10 team in the country. I think it's less of a certain vendetta against Texas or Texas being called out or pointed out or singled out in scheduling, and more of a result of just, man, this league's tough. This league's really difficult, and nobody has a quote-unquote favorable or easy draw.
Yeah, and he did call it a monster.
It is.
It is a monster, and everyone has the same teams. But I think to pull back, one of the things that was already kind of on my radar before he said this is how to win a conference now, right? And we saw this, I think, a year or two ago in the Big Ten. This is not just the SEC. With bloated conferences, you now no longer play every team twice, home and away. That was, in a way, a kind of fair way to do it. Now you have these situations where everyone in the SEC is playing someone else, either home or away, and that impacts it, right? Then you have one team that you play twice. And so there are going to be teams that the road to a regular season title is more difficult because you have a difficult team to play twice. So just to lay out what they are in the SEC this year, Texas and LSU play twice. They will meet again in Austin on February 5th. The next pairing is Vanderbilt and Kentucky. Very tough. South Carolina drew Alabama. They will play them twice. Oklahoma plays Texas A&M. Tennessee faces Mississippi State, and Ole Miss has Georgia. So certainly you could make a case that should any of Texas, LSU, Vanderbilt, or Kentucky win the regular season SEC title, it was more difficult because of having to play those 2 games against elite competition. And again, true of the Big Ten with all of their teams now, and true of other conferences as well.
Totally. And I think, and that's going to happen inevitably, right? That you're going to have some teams that just inherently have harder schedules. That's the reason why strength of schedule is even a metric, is because not all schedules are created equally. The other difficult thing and the unpredictable thing is you don't always know when a team is going to be good. There is so much change in the transfer portal. There's so much so little retention that sometimes it can be hard to predict. Now, I think it's fair to predict that South Carolina is going to be a really good team. It was easy to predict that Texas was going to be a really good team, that LSU was going to be a really good team, and I think it was probably easy to predict that Kentucky was going to be a very good team. I knew Vanderbilt was going to be good because of what we saw from Michaela Blake's last year. I did not expect Vanderbilt to be undefeated at this point now, a top 5 team in the country. There are certain things that you just can't necessarily predict. Maybe you can say, okay, I think they're going to be good, but how good? Okay, I think they're going to be improved, but are they going to be improved to be competitive with the best teams in the conference? And so while that's not a totally imperfect science, while it's not a total and complete shot in the dark, we also have to acknowledge that none of us have crystal balls here. I would not have expected Vanderbilt to be as difficult of an out as they have been so far through conference play, but here we are.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes a crystal ball is just, I don't know, I don't have a good metaphor for it, but it's like a snow globe. Like, just shake it and let it sit there, and like you can obviously see. Like, I think the SEC probably knew that, like, Texas, LSU, South Carolina, we want as many of those games the first 2 seasons as possible.
Oh, of course. And that's also a business side of things.
Right.
Like, what, you going to have Texas play, South Harmon Institute of Technology every single week? No, of course not. Like, there's a reason why the Final Four is watched significantly more than rinky-dink non-conference matchups in November, because it's good teams on good teams. So yeah, like, of course, I'm not going to act like everybody just thought that it had zero clue how good or competitive any of these teams would be. Of course, like, some of those things are calculated, but there are some things that are just unpredictable in sports in general. But that was our diatribe on Vic Schaefer. I do love Vic Schaefer. I really do love him. I got to call it like it is.
Hey, he made the week fun. Thanks, Vic.
He made the week fun, as he does. He's a fun man. He's a sweet man. Love that man. As we're keeping an eye on women's college basketball, Cass and I also both picked one player this week that we would like to highlight. So, Cass, who is your player spotlight of the week?
Has to go to Maggie Dugan of Richmond for me. She now owns the season's highest scoring game. She scored 48 points in a triple overtime win that Richmond had at home against Davidson on Saturday. The previous mark was by Audie Crooks with 47 points. Dugan's total also broke the program's single game scoring record and the conference, the Atlantic 10 scoring mark. This is a player who isn't going to get a ton of attention right now just because of the team she plays for and the conference she plays in, but it is a player and a team that you're going to want to know in March and April when we potentially have a WNBA draft.
I love that pick by you. We don't see the same kind of mid-major magic on the women's side that we might see on the men's side. You can never count out a mid-major on the men's side of things. It feels like Maggie Dugan has been the catalyst for Richmond to be that kind of mid-major that you have to pay attention to. I mean, they came on the scene for me when they played close against UCLA in the NCAA tournament. I think it was just it was either a tie game or the difference of just a handful of points at halftime. Ultimately, UCLA pulled away in the end, but I thought, okay, like, all right, Maggie Dugan, okay, Richmond going toe-to-toe with one of the best teams in the country, and she's followed that up with even more, offensive fireworks this season. My player of the week is one that I feel like deserves a little bit of love because it hasn't necessarily shown up in the win-loss column. You mentioned her when talking about Maggie Dugan, and my player of the week spotlight is Audie Crooks. I mean, she is the leading scorer for women's basketball on the season, and over the last 3 games, which is about a week or so and some change, she's been averaging 25 points a game. She shot 89% from the field against West Virginia. Audie Crooks has been absolutely phenomenal, and she's put up some gaudy stats. I go back to that game against Kansas or just before Christmas time, putting up 41 points. Followed that up with a 35-point outing against Houston. And you can't ignore what Audie Crooks has been doing. So she is my player of the week, but she's also the player that I feel like needs the most from her team that she's not getting of any other player in their team in all of women's college basketball. Because even with Audie Crooks putting up double-digit points, putting up 20-plus points a game, Iowa State is on a 3-game losing skid. They're now toward the bottom of the conference rankings in the Big 12. Then when you look at Iowa State's roster as a whole, I mean, Audie Crooks leads the way by a far margin, averaging 28 points a game this season. There's only 2 other players on that roster that are averaging double-digit points, and one of them, Addie Brown, is out indefinitely, quote-unquote, was the report from their head coach with a calf injury. So now you have Audie Crooks, who's been inevitable. But then you also have Addie Brown, who's going to be out, who is going to help Audi Crooks carry the rest of the brunt of the load so Iowa State doesn't continue to skid down the Big 12 rankings.
Yeah, losing Addie Brown is huge. They're a massive 1-2 punch, and they have been for a couple years now. They will need to figure it out quickly because I think the Big 12 is really packed with a lot of teams who are kind of equivalent to each other, and that was always going to be a battle. Hopefully, Addie Brown can come back, sooner rather than later with that injury, because that is a huge one to overcome. And they have a couple more, I think, on that roster too.
Yeah, I want to see good players get to showcase what they can do on the biggest stages. But your great players, your star players, they can't do it alone. Audi Crooks has been doing it alone, and then we're seeing it kind of rear its ugly head when she can't do it by herself anymore, when she needs some more help from the roster around her. We've got some great matchups coming up on the hardwood and the women's side of things. On Wednesday, we've got TCU at West Virginia, 7 o'clock Eastern time. Cass, what are you watching for in this one?
That Big 12 race, Olivia Miles is always a triple-double threat. West Virginia's defense likes to collect steals, so we'll see.
And then on Thursday, one of my favorite budding rivalries in the SEC, our buddy Vic Schaefer, going on the road at South Carolina. That's at 7 o'clock Eastern time. These two teams have been overly familiar with one another. They played twice in the regular season last year, and then in the SEC championship game, they were the two kind of number one seeds in the SEC tournament. It was then decided by a coin flip. That was a whole thing. Two teams that were represented in the Final Four last year, so definitely a battle of the heavyweights, not just in the conference, but in all of women's college basketball as a whole. And then on Sunday, we've got a stacked day. Louisville at NC State, Tennessee at Alabama, LSU at Oklahoma, Maryland at UCLA, Michigan State at Iowa. Which one stands out to you there, Cass?
Well, what I love about this day, I'm not even going to highlight a specific game. You've got a 1 p.m. tip, 2 p.m., 3 p.m., 4 p.m. You can start watching at 1, and you can catch the ending of every single one of these games on Sunday.
Pull up some snacks on the couch, kick your feet up. You got entertainment all day long. We've also got some Unrivaled action happening as well. Unrivaled hits the court Friday through Monday evening. The Rose, undefeated, take on the Hive, who are winless. So could the unthinkable happen? Could the Rose get handed their first loss of the season against a team that needs one badly? We shall see. We'll follow all of that Unrivaled action coming up throughout the weekend, and we will be back next week with all of our thoughts and all of our opinions and all the latest that's been happening in women's basketball. Disagree with us? Let us know. We're here for it. Comment down below if you're watching on YouTube, but you can also catch us on your preferred podcast platform as well. For Cassandra Negley, I am Caroline Fenton. We'll see you next week on Hoops 360.